Today's episode of HIPcast is brought to you by Harris Data Integrity Solutions. Embark on a journey towards unparalleled excellence and reliability in healthcare data management. Harris Data Integrity Solutions merges the expertise of Just Associates and Quadramed Corporation, paving the way for a brighter future in patient data integrity. You'll have peace of mind that you're working with a SOC 2 Type 2 certified vendor. With Smart IX, achieve a unified enterprise master person index, ensuring seamless patient records across your entire health system with precision and accuracy. CuraMatch offers modern automated HIM workflow solutions, empowering HIM teams with efficient patient duplicate detection and resolution processes. Streamline your MPI maintenance with Harris Experts teams tailored MPI cleanup solutions, saving you time and minimizing errors for sustained data integrity. Discover the power of Harris Data Integrity Solutions, shaping the landscape of healthcare data management. Explore their comprehensive offerings today at harrisdataintegritysolutions.com.
We are so excited today. Today is my first time meeting our guest, and I am fascinated by reading her bio. I cannot wait to get into this conversation. If you're a health data analyst or you work in the data analytics field at all, you are probably going to be fascinated by this. So stick around. Welcome to the show, Barbara.
Thank you.
Very nice to have you here. I'm going to read your fascinating bio, and then we're going to get into just the discussion of what your career has looked like and your health information journey, how your health information education kind of helped set you up for the fascinating things that you've done. And then we'll probably get into some other things if Seth doesn't cut me off. So I'll read your bio now. Barbara Fuller is a JD, RHIA, and a fellow of FAHIMA, graduate of Lees McRae Junior College, the University of Maryland, and the University of Maryland School of Law. As a health information professional, Barbara worked in a variety of healthcare settings, including hospitals and health maintenance organizations, also lovingly referred to as HMOs. She managed large health information systems, designed quality assessment systems, designed systems to protect patient privacy, implemented medical risk management programs. She has served as the president of the Virginia Health Information Association twice, president of the American Health Information Management Association, or AHIMA, and as chair of the Foundation for Research on Education of AHIMA. She has also been named Distinguished Member of AHIMA for her service. In addition to her work in health information, Barbara is an attorney with an experience in legal and policy analysis of state and federal legislation, as well as the requirements of statutes and regulations governing the professional ethics of employees of the federal government. While working at the National Human Genome Research Institute, or NHGRI, at the National Institutes of Health, she also worked on projects addressing the privacy of genetic information and genetic discrimination, specifically the use of genetic information in the workplace. So I hear that beautiful grandfather clock in the background. And the use of genetic information by insurers. This work ultimately contributed to the passage of the Federal Genetic Information Nondiscrimination Act of 2008, we call GINA. GINA prohibits discrimination on the basis of genetic information with respect to health insurance and employment. As director of the Office of Ethics at NHGRI, she was responsible for the professional ethics program for the Institute. Her publications include topics such as genomics and health information management, privacy and genetics research, and genetic information and the workplace. So fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Right. Seriously, a health information professional, instrumental in GINA. That's a big deal for our profession. That's a big deal for the world. Or at least for our country, right? For our world. So welcome to the show. You are a fascinating woman.
Thank you.
Very much so. And to let everybody know, we do always remind our guests to turn off things that ding and ring, but you will hear a grandfather clock periodically because those are very difficult to silence. So if you if you hear that in the background, it's okay. And then, I've always wanted to go to law school. My mother said I should go to law school because she said that I would argue with a wall. And I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but that's only something a mother can say.
Well, that's how I got into health information.
That's a great segue. Let's do that. Let's go into the first question. Tell us about your HI journey.
So I didn't know what I wanted to do when I finished high school. And back then, my father wanted me to have a profession. And so if my husband couldn't work for any reason, then I could support the family. That was the thought. So at that time, you could be a teacher. I mean, the women were teachers or nurses. I didn't want to be a teacher. I thought maybe a nurse because I liked the little white uniforms and the little white hats that they wore. And I thought that's for me. So then I was a candy striper, I think for one day. And then that one day I realized what nurses really did. And I thought, nope, that is not me. So my mother said, I've heard of something called medical records. You should go to a school, you should go to Lees McRae and study medical records. So I did. It was perfect. It really was unbelievable that I got so much from medical records, and I loved every aspect of health information except medical coding. No.
Amen. Preach.
Everything else. And my first job out of school was in a TB Sanatorium in North Carolina.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And we had 300 or 400 beds at the sanatorium and 300 or 400 beds at the prison. Because at that time, TB they couldn't control it. So if somebody refused to get treatment, they would put them in prison. So we had prisoners who were real prisoners. They were criminals. And we had prisoners who were everyday people who refused to get treatment. So anyway, I was there. And then I went to Illinois and then some community hospitals in Illinois. And then we moved to the D.C. area. So I was at a hospital in Virginia. And then got the opportunity to go with an HMO. And that was very interesting because it was downtown D.C. And I could look over and see Jimmy Carter taking Amy Carter to school because her school was right across from our building.
Awesome.
But along the way, I think about how I progressed, and I had incredible mentors who along the way would say, oh, well, you're new to the area. Why don't you join this committee? Or why don't you, we will put you on, we'll do this and we'll involve you here. And it was just the mentoring aspect that really helped me go along and to be to get involved on the boards of Virginia and the AHIMA.
That's awesome. I've always thought Seth is probably a little bit jealous of the fact that you could look over and see President Carter taking his daughter to school. Seth, in another life, Seth would have been living in D.C. He loves
Absolutely.
it. He loves it. I mean, I love it too, but Seth really has this connection.
Primarily,
to it.
my jealousy was for politicians that got to drive the tractor at the front of the parade locally. I just always thought that would be fun to wave and kiss babies. And I remember having that conversation with Lauren Ripplinger one time in D.C. and I said, should I go into politics? And she said, do you want to affect the things of an industry. And then she said, here's a better question. Do you care about other industries? And I was like, no, I care about my industry. I don't care about the rest of them. She said, then you would like policy, not politics. And I was like, oh,
Thank
okay.
you, Lauren. You know, I have to say, Barbara, you said you had some great mentors, but I have to say kudos to your dad, who maybe he was your first, because he said to you at a time when maybe it wasn't common to do something besides be a nurse or a teacher. Go find something to do in case you need to take care. And look at what that inspired, this fantastic career.
That's true.
That's awesome.
Who knew? Because certainly I didn't know any women lawyers at that time, if there were any.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So I have to ask a follow-up question about the prison. When you were working with those TB patients, were you reporting the vitals or the mortality information to the CDC at the time?
Yes, more than that. I was the county, my position included being the county registrar. Oh, so wow. I had to sign the death certificates for the patients that died. So yes, it was run by the state. And so we had a lot of, we followed all the state regulations. And I'm sure that they were reporting things, because while I was there, they came out with isoniazid, which was the miracle treatment for tuberculosis. And so I think shortly after I left, they actually closed the hospital because they didn't need it anymore.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, that's almost working yourself out of a job, but obviously you did not. You left and did community hospitals and then an HMO. When you left the HMO, is that kind of when you went to the NIH? How'd you find your way to the NIH? That's a good question.
So one of my favorite things to do in health information was the medical legal part. Representing the organization when I had to go take the record into the, to court, and just medical malpractice. When I was with the HMO, I was in charge of the medical malpractice program. We were self-insured for medical malpractice. So I administered that program. And then I just got, I was very active in AHIMA at that time. But I really felt the need to get my bachelor's. And because I'd never gotten my bachelor's, and I thought, okay, if I'm going to get my bachelor's, what do I get my bachelor's in? And then I decided, okay, I'm going to do law school. So I'm going on a 5-year journey. So I quit the HMO. Told my husband that I was going to, I told him first and then I quit. And he was very supportive. And then when I was in law school, I was a research assistant for one of the professors. That professor had a research grant from NIH, from the Genome Institute. And so working with her as her research assistant, then that was a progression. Then she, is who you know sometimes.
Yeah.
And so she made it easy for me to go with the Genome Institute.
That's amazing. So I am so inspired by you, and being a lifelong learner, I'm so inspired that you are sharing this story. We have a lot of professionals, hopefully, that will listen to this, some that are seasoned and some that are not, that could be inspired by your story, because it's not only just your health information journey, right? It is also your other journey in education, but also an experience. And I love that you married two things that you love: health information and health information management and medical records and medical librarians, right? With legal and then research. These are great marriages. So let me just ask you to, if you could give one little bit of 30 to 60 second inspiration to a seasoned professional to take a next step to do something different, what would it be?
Well, I was 48 when I went back to school. And I thought that, and my son, we both were freshmen. I mean, he was a freshman at the university when I was a junior at the university.
I love it.
And when I saw him on campus, he would look the other way. But it was an incredible, it was fun. It really was fun. And I was totally out of my element. I went to class the first day in my work uniform, high heels, carrying all my books. And one of the other students, bless her, said, "You need a pair of blue jeans and a backpack." And it had never occurred to me that I could wear blue jeans every day. So, I mean, something as simple as that. I still remember her telling me that. So I went out and got blue jeans and a backpack.
Oh, my goodness. Did your son at least look at you then?
What?
Would your son acknowledge you on campus then when you were dressed like that?
No.
Still no. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Well, tell us some about your work at the NIH. And, and if once you get into that story, tell us how being a health information professional helped shape how you manage that work at the NIH.
Well, that's a really interesting question, Shannon, because I thought when I went to law school that I was leaving health information behind. I thought, okay, I've loved health information and I've done well there, but now I'm going to go into law. And they're two totally separate. It was almost instantaneously, I realized that almost everything that I did at the Genome Institute at NIH had a health information component.
Absolutely.
So I was, when I started there, they were just in the process. They had been sequencing the human genome. And one of the things they were very concerned about was the genetic discrimination by health insurers, by employers. They were very concerned about the experimental research data on a person's genes getting into their regular medical record. So it would be released when it was just experimental and no one really knew what it meant.
Yeah.
And so I was very involved in getting, in the background, getting legislation to protect health insurance and for employment. And an example is one day for employment, I had a young man come to see me and ask if I could help him. He was a Marine. He had been a Marine, and he was ramrod straight, this perfect young man, and he had a genetic condition called von Hippel-Lindau, which means various tumors all over his body. He had, and it's a genetic condition. They know that they had the gene identified, but it didn't manifest itself until some years after he had joined the Marines. And he would have different things happen, and he would keep going. He lost an eye because of this. He kept being the perfect Marine. He had all kinds of surgeries and different things happen to him. He was the perfect Marine. Then it was the Afghanistan war, and they declared that he was not deployable because of his condition. So he decided to retire, and this was a big deal for him. He was a Marine's Marine. He really was. And so he decided to retire on medical disability from the Corps. They refused to grant it. They said that it was a pre-existing condition because there was a genetic component to it. So he came to see me and asked if we could help. Well, the government couldn't help him. We couldn't take sides. We did, but we couldn't be overt about it. So we gave them all kinds of information and tried to explain what it was. And the NIH is right across the road from, then it was Bethesda Naval Hospital. Now it's Walter Reed. But so I walked over there the day he had a hearing. I walked over to the hearing, and it was unbelievable because the hearing was before this panel of admirals. At least I've never seen so much stuff on their shoulders, and and it was very impressive. And then they asked us to leave for a while, and then they called us back in. And when they called us back in, the head admiral stood up and he asked for Jay to come to the head of the room, and he saluted him. And he said, he didn't say you're a wonderful Marine, but he said that's what he essentially said. And he granted the medical benefits for him. And so that was just one example, seeing him and being able to, I think I gave him moral support. This is one of the things that wasn't really anything that I could write or that I could do, but just moral support. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there was a large federal facility in California that was secretly doing genetic testing for pregnancy, syphilis, and sickle cell of the employees. And there was a large railroad company that was doing, if an employee was injured on the job, they would do genetic testing behind the scenes. And this was like, what were they thinking?
That's mind-blowing.
So then that's how that really just sort of spurs you on. When you hear stories like that and you meet people like Jay, and you just do whatever you have to do to try to get the genetic discrimination, because then we had women who were, BRCA1 is a genetic test for breast cancer.
Breast cancer, yeah.
It's not 100%, but it makes them more susceptible to develop breast cancer than the average person without the gene. And they were very concerned, women that had the gene were very concerned that they would lose their health insurance. And the statement that they would make is that I can fight breast cancer, but I can't fight it without health insurance. Mm-hmm. And so that just that was another spur, because the women that were involved have learned, Seth, you probably have learned this too. If you get women on something, they're going to take care of it.
Yes, very much so. I live in a house full of girls, so I understand.
Just stand back. Mm-hmm. So they were the driving force for a lot of the health insurance and employment discrimination legislation.
So would you say that GINA is one of the maybe most important milestones of your career?
Oh my gosh, yes. Because everything I was doing was leading up to that.
Absolutely.
It was like, we would go to the states. I would go to different states and meet with the state legislatures. And then I would go, it was amazing. So we would keep track of the different states who had legislation. And I'm proud to say that actually North Carolina had the first anti-discrimination legislation for sickle cell in 1975.
Wow.
I don't know any of the history, but I'm proud of North Carolina for doing that. But then we had, because it was a big deal, the White House had a big celebration. So I got to go to the White House twice. Once when they finished sequencing a draft of the human genome, which was a big deal. And then when they had the 50th anniversary of the discovery of the double helix.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That is
so fascinating.
GINA is GINA is a big deal. And I wonder, so this is not something that we, talked about in prep. And so if it's not something that you're been able to keep up with lately, that's okay to just say you don't keep up with this. But I'm wondering, if there's a need for any expansion, not necessarily to GINA, but these companies like 23andMe, where there have been data breaches. What can you say to that? What can you say to, what do we need to do from either a health information standpoint or a legal standpoint, a medical legal standpoint? What do we need to do to kind of address and think about these genetic testing that we're doing for ancestral reasons or just for your own susceptibility, for your own private knowledge? What do we do here?
Well, I just think that it's the same thing we were dealing with years ago. It's how this information is used. Because your genetic information now is everywhere. I mean, when 23andMe first started, we had concerns then, and now it's just like it really, everybody's using genetic information, and it can give you a lot of information. It really can, not just about what your genetic predisposition to a certain disease like breast cancer or colon cancer, but oh my goodness. So I just think that the ramifications are so immense that it really pushes the limits of what we do with health information. It's like
it makes me think of the credit card example. Everybody's so very protective of their credit card information, but the reality is the moment you swipe that card, the moment you buy something online, that information is out there and could be exposed. And I guess, I've always had fear of using one of those genetic testing things because of the privacy side going, I don't want this to affect my future abilities to get it. Life insurance or health insurance or whatnot. But I guess the reality is anytime I've gone through certain panels, blood panels, there are genetic components to that I can see in my record now that's on my phone. And I'm like, oh gosh, Apple has it now. So I guess if Apple has it, everybody's got it. I don't know. So I guess the reality is it's just out there. You kind of just have to figure out how it's being used and how to protect yourself. And are those companies, they're not covered entities, are they, under HIPAA?
No, they're not covered entities.
That's a scary challenge.
Yeah, I wonder, that's a good point, Seth. They're not covered entities. Barbara, and I know that you're not originating, if I order a kit and they send me a kit as a person, a human person, not as a patient, right? Just as an individual buying something on retail in the marketplace. I'm not a patient at that point. I'm swabbing or whatever it is I'm doing, giving them the signatures to my body. And then I send it off and they're doing their things. Even though I'm doing that as a purchaser in the marketplace in retail, should that be governed under rules of HIPAA like a covered entity?
Absolutely. I mean,
how do we make that happen? Is that something health information professionals should be trying to advocate for? Because Seth, I've not heard this in our profession about advocating for privacy there or that they become covered entities. But how do we take that charge up as a health information professionals?
Well, see, and part of the another issue is they say it's unidentifiable. They might release information and saying they don't put Shannan Swafford on the sample. But if it's your genetic information, it really is identifiable.
It's a signature. Of course it's identifiable.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
They just need another sample somewhere else, right?
Yeah, if they had, a relative of yours, they could trace it because that's what they already do. The police do it.
They catch killers that way, which I find fascinating. I bet no killer that ever went to 23andMe said, I want to see where all my family is, ever thought, one day I'm going to get busted for being a serial killer, right?
Right.
It's crazy. It is so crazy. But I also, Seth, I will tell you too, I've never submitted my samples or whatever. I've never done one of those for that same fear of, what does that mean? What are the implications for my future that could be negative that we haven't thought about yet?
Well,
Go ahead, Barbara.
But I was going to say, fall a year ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So they said, do you want to do the genetic test? And I'm thinking, yikes.
Do I?
So I did.
You did. Okay.
I did. But it was, because I thought, okay, for my, my son, my grandchildren, it's important to know if there's, did I have the BRCA1 or 2?
Right.
And so I had to put myself in the shoes of people that have had to make this decision, because for me, it was a fairly dramatic decision, even though I knew all about it. I knew the ramifications.
Yeah,
but
it's
I did
tough.
it.
I mean, those are tough things. Those are tough things to know. And then also, I don't know if it seems like I've seen some providers or labs maybe were falsifying some of the results of BRCA1. Did you see that in the news a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago or so? Yeah, and it affected one particular family. 4 of the 5 women in that family had elective radical mastectomies, and it turned out that the results had been somehow altered, and they were not at all. Yeah, it was a pretty significant. So it's all very terrifying.
So that would be another thing for a lawyer to do.
Yeah. Yes.
Very much so.
Another thing for a lawyer to do. Yes.
Yeah, that scares me. There for a moment, Barbara, you had me on board going, well, maybe it's not that big of a deal. And then now Shannon's got me back on the other end of the spectrum going, there's no way I'm doing this again.
So scary.
Well, it's truly been an inspiration to hear your story, Barbara. You've had a fascinating career. And I guess the last question I would ask is, what advice would you give those that are mid-career and those that are beginning of their career, and what to look forward to and how to follow in your footsteps?
Well, I'll go back to what Shannan was saying. For those that are in mid-career, don't let that limit you. Go for it. I mean, really. And when I think of what happened between the time that I resigned at the HMO and the time that I started at NIH 5 years later, it was an unbelievable journey that was just beginning to start. I was in the second part of it. For those just starting out, I've always tried to encourage young people to participate in everything, to go to these local meetings, to go to your state meetings. Do it. You don't know anybody there, just go, because that's how you get involved. And to me, when I was actively involved more than I am now, it was the friends that I made. It was that's who, in fact, earlier last week, I went to see one of my friends from HIM because she had a loss in her family. So I went down to see her. And it's just, that's what it is. That's what it's all about. It's all about being a human and making the most of what you've got. And being a mentor too.
Yes.
That would be my advice to people that are already a little bit established, is reach out to these young people coming up. Invite them.
Very good advice.
That's fantastic.
So, in closing, Barbara, I want to thank you so much for sharing your fascinating journey. I thank you for your inspiration. You inspire me. And I love that you just be uncomfortable. Just go wear your high heels and your dress and carry the books to class. Okay. Just do it. If you have to leave the office and run to class. And yes, I understand we're on virtual. Everybody's doing virtual everything today, but that's not the point. If you have to hang up from your last business meeting of the day and log in to whatever course application that you're meeting your cohorts in, then just do it. I love that. I appreciate your input. I appreciate your career and the impact you've had on the ability for us to continue to have health insurance without discrimination based on our genetics. Thank you so much for that. That is amazing. And for all of the health information professionals listening at any step in your career, you still can impact our future lives the same way that Barbara did. Just be involved. Just be active. Don't have a submissive voice. Put your skills and talents to use. Learn something new. Marry those things up. And just engage. I love it. So thank you, Barbara. And also, I did not know about last year's diagnosis, and I pray that you have health and safety from here on out.
Shannan, I'm one of the lucky ones.
Awesome.
I really am.
So good to know.
Thank you.
Yes, very good to know. Well, thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you for being here with us. And we also want to thank today's sponsor that brought HIPcast to us, Harris Data Integrity Solutions. Join us on a journey of excellence into the future of data integrity. Harris brings together the unparalleled expertise of Just Associates and Quadramed Corporation to revolutionize healthcare data management. You'll have peace of mind that you are working with a SOC 2 Type 2 certified vendor. With SmartAx EMPI, you establish a single source of truth across your entire health system, ensuring accurate patient records with up to 99% accuracy. CuraMatch HIM Workflow Solutions offers an automated HIM workflow, eliminating cumbersome processes of remediating duplicates using spreadsheets while reducing errors. Say goodbye to time-consuming MPI cleanup maintenance. Harris Expert Team delivers tailored solutions for efficient MPI cleanup, customized to your facility's needs. Experience the power of Harris Data Integrity Solutions, shaping the future of healthcare data management today. Visit harrisdataintegritysolutions.com to learn more. Shannan, until next time, my friend.
See you next time.